level for all of this. And that's what she's running away from. And she's not going to be able to run away from this. She could be doing right, but she's not. Nothing has been confirmed as of yet, so we still believe Wade and what he said about Daniel and Malaya. What do you mean, Esther? I don't even listen. I don't even think Danny is involved in any rug ring. He's probably not manufacturing it, because you think of it like this. This guy doesn't have any money to begin with. Money's a real problem around there. So at one time, years ago, it used to be cheaper to go and less risky to go and make it yourself, until they restricted a lot of the ingredients that you'd use to manufacture. You can still get a hold of it, but it's expensive, meaning that you've got to have a pretty streamlined business with money designated to buy the materials that you consume, your consumables, if you will, in order to make a profit after you make your product. In that sense, it's more expensive to go and make your own batch constantly. In that sense, it's more likely that he was spending it just buying it on the street. It's fairly convenient that way. And that's what it looks like to me. But I still try to account for, because I put a lot of credibility in Bradley Wong's eyewitness account and Justin Smith's. So just thinking about all of the traffic between that time of night, it doesn't mean that he couldn't have gotten as far to dump packages in the ocean. But what were all of the trips about? How do you account for that? Let me know in the comments section below. I'm interested to hear people's feedback, because I'm still open. I still wonder. I still like to know. I still consider all of the things. We know Janie's out there digging holes and raking and doing all kinds of weird shit by admission. Is she telling the truth? Is it just a bullshit line for actually telling you what she was really doing? And what was she really doing? Whatever it was had to do with evidence, no matter what it is that she's talking about. Something was going on during those hours. Something was going on during those hours. So what were all of the trips for? And did those trips, I want a better understanding of the time frame of Daniel's irrational search. I'd have to go back and look. Maybe it's already out there. But the days that he was out and about without his phone, or out searching on his own away from the rest of the organized search party or the police, as soon as responders got on the scene, I shouldn't say that. I don't want to tell the RCMP what they should have done, because I believe they let him just walk around so they could observe him, figure out what it was that he was doing. All of this is on camera. You can watch it at any one point after the fact and try to figure out what part of that country that Danny was in at that point in time. Now, we're obviously not talking about, we're talking about two children who are missing at this point, who we're suspecting are dead and that Dan has disposed of. And Janie, of course, helping with the cleanup and cover-up. The question is, what did Danny do with those packages? How did he dispose of them? Maine, USA, it's a good observation. I think that the items that he mentioned that the children had are the items that he'd thrown out that night, or thrown about that night. It's a good possibility. Backpack, the boots, sweaters. Could you imagine a 4 and a 6-year-old in an adult male, we'll say hoodie sweater, with the arms tied up and the hoodie all tied up into a 3 with a large rock in it? Now you have a package that would sink if you threw it into water. I can't decide yet on the type of individual I think Daniel is. Even though that we love and I love to listen to Mike, I'm still open. I want more evidence. I need to hear more evidence. And it's out there. It exists. I need to know more before I decide. I'm still 50-50. And it's not, unfortunately or fortunately, justice doesn't have to wait on finding a body in order to proceed with any of this. Especially when there's children involved, because like it or not, they were in charge of the kids' safety. They were responsible. So we don't have to know all the finite details. They can play zip their kids missing. That's not going to fly. And that's not going to go over in front of any jury or any judge. They'll decide for you. And they'll just prove that you lied and proved that the children were, it was impossible for them to survive on their own, therefore passed. Where's Firehorse? Making good points in my chat? I gotta see. Firehorse asks, why would MBM continue to cover things up? You want me to play devil's advocate? Why would MBM continue to cover up things if DM alone was responsible? Especially since DM and Janie were... Well, the answer to that, the quick answer to that, the law, depending on what happened, there's an easy answer for that, Firehorse. I'm not saying it is the answer, but there's answers for that. Why would MBM continue to cover things up if DM alone was responsible? Brainwashed into thinking that way. She was easily controlled. She's a trauma-based mind control slave to Daniel in that sense, potentially. I'm not saying that that's true, but we know all the elements are there. If DM alone was responsible, especially since DM and Janie were front and center in throwing her in front of the bus, that's what confuses me. Well, I don't have all the answers to that, actually. You raise a good point. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate. She has a reason to lie at this point in time. She was probably already made to feel bad. Whatever Janie... Like there's an element of evil here that we're not going to relate to. I'm not dismissing or undermining what it is that we're trying to imagine. I'm just trying to remind us. So Janie or Daniel, whatever they did, they felt justified in doing, and that comes through their language, how they talk about Jack and Lily and Malaya's shortcomings as a mother in light of the kids missing from their house. All while telling you in the most inappropriate ways about how they're so much more superior of a parent and adult. It was a real extension of how they were treating Malaya in her real life every day in that sense. So maybe there's an element of gaslighting going on. Maybe Malaya was in the house and not knowing. I have a hard time that she doesn't know. See, the issue here is the story that she gave the RCMP and the story that she gave in front of the CTV news camera. Why did she lie to the RCMP? Why did she lie? Why was she made to lie? Is it just seem like she was made to lie? Does it just seem that way because Daniel and Janie made her call the RCMP with a certain story? We don't know that yet. Oh, is my audio back in on and off? Some of you might get some disruptions. I apologize for that. I don't know why it's doing that to you all. It's popping in and out. You might get some interruptions, but I'm not going anywhere. No matter what, on some level, they were her kids, and she's feeling responsible for.
And I would try to go coasting with them, but I have some medical problems. I couldn't really go coasting with them, but I would push them down the hill in the sleigh. I would play snowballs with them. I'd build snowmans with them. I never seen Malaya ever do that with them. When she was out watching them coast, she was pulling Meadow around in the sleigh. After Meadow was born, yes, Meadow got all the attention. I seen that with my own 2 eyes, yes. Jack and Lily were sort of put on the back burner, yes.
What does that
I've
mean?
never seen when I would go in there after them after school.
When Janie says that Jack and Lily were put on the back burner, you know, she's like acknowledging that she's witnessing neglect and abuse in that sense. Instead of being a positive influence, she chooses to call Malaya, who's 40 feet away, and remind her how bad of a parent she considers she is for whatever reason. That's the way she describes it. For 2 years, you're supposed to speak on it. You lived in an RV in the driveway. You observed those kids in the backyard. And somehow it comes back to why Malaya is a bad parent in that circumstance. She's a participant. She's a contributor within this household. She's a part of the kids' lives, like it or not. You invited this into your life, Janie. This is Daniel and Malaya's problem in Janie's life on Garlock Road. And she's slipping in and out of this role of caring grandmother who's just such a jovial person, a positive influence, to this landlord stranger who observes all of the wrong things that go on around there from afar and is able to report on them after the fact, as opposed to stepping in and fixing situations in the moment.
I would never see Malaya sit down and do their homework with them. I would never see Malaya read to them. I would always read to them when I would babysit them. Yes, I babysit Jack and Lily. Whenever they went somewhere, I would babysit them. And I had no problem with Jack and Lily. Jack and Lily would sit with me and watch TV. I would take Jack. He would hold him in my arms. He would pretend he was swimming. He would pretend he was playing airplane. Lily would be running around showing me her dolls. And, like, yes, I did more interaction with those children than Malaya did. And as I was saying, if you have to call their mother to tell them that Jack has no boots on or Jack has no coat on, and if she's supposed to be watching them all the time, that's a bunch of bull crap. Because I would even watch my other 2 grandchildren when they were out in the yard, and I would always keep an eye on them when they were in the yard. And I was always yelling for them, "Where are you guys? Where are you guys?" And the only time those kids really got outside is when she was putting Meadow down for her nap. And when she would put Meadow down for her nap, she would go down for a nap too with Meadow. Well, as I said, that's between her and Malaya. Well, as I said, that's between her and Malaya. Well, let's start with Jack. Jack was a curious little boy. He was a happy little go-lucky boy. But I'll tell you, if he didn't want to do something, he wasn't going to do it. Because when I would get after him to put his shoes on, and when he was running around his bare feet, I would say, "Jack, put your shoes on." I've said this. And he would just stand there and put his arms up, fold his arms up, and go, "Eh, eh, eh, eh." And that's all I would get out of him. Other than that...
That's crazy.
He was a curious little boy. That's all he...
That's so nasty. Does anybody else get freaked out listening to that? Like, how many times is she going to do it? I mean, heaven's sakes. That's all you would get out of him. He was a curious little boy, and that's all I'll say about him. Yeah. The only thing, you go over and poke him with the stick, and the only thing that he would do is grunt. Is yeah. Holy mackerel, man. Like, there's nothing in the tank. There's no positivity. There's no warmth in the tank. No. You would think that a woman who has had 2 kids in her life, maybe she's just that filled with hate at this point. Think about all the positive things that there is to say about somebody. There's always exceptions, I guess. Oh, boy.
Would do all day when he was outside was sit and turn boards over or rocks over looking for bugs and worms. I had my granddaughter down digging worms for the chickens, and he would come down there and he would grab every worm that he could see, and when it would come time to go feed the chickens, he goes, no, they were my friends, I'm keeping them. He would play on the swing. He was a happy-go-lucky boy. Lily, she was a Miss Prim girl, as I would say, if that's what you call it. I guess they call her a diva or whatever, but to me, Miss Prim. Because whenever she would get her clothes dirty, she would go in and change her clothes. I never knew what that girl was going to come out in. She had a kitchen out in the yard. I had a play kitchen. I got a play kitchen for them. Well, for my oldest two grandchildren. And when they weren't here, that's what she did. She'd play with the kitchen. She'd make mud pies. She would pretend she was making hot chocolate or coffee or tea. If a bug got around her, she would scream, there's a bug. And she would go running in the house because there was a bug. Jack would just say, where's the bug? That's all they ever, from what I observed, they just played on the swings a lot. Her and the oldest grandchild would play on the swing. They would sit up there and they'd sing. I'd sit there on my doorstep and listen to them sing. They would run around the yard, and that's all I ever heard was Lily saying, come on, Jackie, let's go, Jackie, come here and play, Jackie, come here and play. They were bright little kids. They talked a breeze. Like when someone come into my yard, like if my brother come into my yard, they would come and say hi, and my brother would talk to them, and they would talk to him, and Jack would be there. Oh, look at my worms, or look at my bugs. I remember one day we caught a salamander, him and I, and Daniel said, Jack, you have to let the salamander go, because if not, it'll die. Well, I snuck the salamander out of the bucket, and he looked for that salamander, and he cried, because we let his salamander go. Jack was just into bugs. He loved bugs. Lily was into the kitchen, making mud pies. And then when my 2 oldest grandchildren would come down, every second weekend they would come. My oldest granddaughter would come in here, and they'd say, Granny, we want some snacks to go up to the little cabin they built, or the little fort they built. They built it themselves out of sticks and brush. And I'd say, there's the fridge. My other 2 grandchildren, they could have whatever they wanted. My fridge was like one of those doors when you go into a store. It would open and close all the time. My oldest granddaughter would come in here, and she would take snacks for all of them and pack them in her backpack and go up to the camp. And another thing, the backpack thing. I've never seen Lily outside with that backpack. Daniel told me that they always tried to keep her from taking it outside, but I've never seen her with that pack. The only time outside playing, but the time I did see her with the backpack is when my 2 other grandchildren would come down. She'd want a backpack too, because the oldest grandchild had a backpack, and she wanted to be just like her. and have a backpack. Oh.
Great statements, Janie. So, I'm getting some errors, but I'm going to stick through it. My chat was disconnected. I don't see my chat on my StreamYards, but I do see you back in the studio. Excuse me. Let me know if you hear me on my audio. That would be great. It's like my connection. We have a blizzard warning going on. There might be some intermittent issues.
And another thing, when we go walking up the old road here, top of up the top of the hill here, up above my place there, if Jack didn't want to walk, Jack wouldn't walk. He would stand there and he would I'd say, "Come on, Jack, we're gonna walk." He would stand there and he would stamp his feet, fold his arms, and just look at me. And I'd say, "Come on, Jack, we're going for a walk." I'd have to go and take him by the hand to make him walk. Jack was a kid. If he didn't want to do something, he wasn't going to do it. Lily, she would walk along. I'd have to yell at Lily, "Lily, wait up for us, wait up for us." But Jack, no. Jack would not move if you didn't take him by the hand and tell him to come on. Apparently Lily was the only one that was sick. I think the reason why Jack didn't go to school is because I don't think she wanted Jack to go to school by herself. That's my opinion. They missed school Thursday, yes. They went to